Hey guys, it's Jennifer Miner back again with another card. This one I am calling my Oasis card, and it features the Hero Arts December 2017 card kit, which includes a fantastic Moroccan or Middle Eastern feel, stamps, dies, a stencil, as well as inks. And this is the card I created. This is my first one. So let's get started. I'm going to use the stencil that came in the kit, and I'm just adhering it to my work surface with a little bit of washi tape. And in that kit came a set of 5 little mini ink pads, and I'm going to use 4 of those colors today to create my background. I'm using a sapphire, pink tourmaline, teal topaz, and ruby, along with my ink blending tool. And you can probably see in the video I have a bowl with just ink pads that I've used before, and so I'm just picking the one that's sort of maybe a blue one or a teal one or a pink one to use these with. These inks were super juicy, super vibrant, and one of the really nice things, sometimes when you've got a really wet ink, it bleeds, and these stayed exactly in place. They were fantastic, and they really like this stencil. So I'm just, again, coming in and working with my colors the same way you would with your distress inks. I found that these were really comparable to working with any other ink. Now once I've got that done, I know that I want to cut out kind of the window or the door, and this particular die came from the set, so I'm just lining it up. I'm going to tape it down with washi tape before I cut that out. Now I'm going to use my Epic 6, which happens to be one of the die cutters that I own. Use whatever you have, but I'm here just checking to see if it's going to fit. And honestly, that silhouette is just a tiny bit too large for my machine. So I just ran it through, repositioned it, and then ran it through again to cut the bottom half of the die. It's kind of not ideal, and I really should have just gotten out my bigger die cutting machine, but I didn't. So, and it worked out fine this time. So I've got that background. Now I'm going to take another piece of white cardstock, and very lightly I'm going to trace the shape of my window. This is to kind of help me when I'm doing my coloring. And then I created just a basic copy paper mask for the stamping. So I've just got my MISTI set up here, and I am stamping the dunes in the background. So that copy paper is going to mask. Because I've got that frame in front, it's really not that big of a deal, but I wanted it to be pretty tidy and clean, and I wasn't quite sure how everything was going to look up there. And I've stamped the palm trees, and now I'm going to stamp the camels using my MISTI tool. And these stamps were a little sticky, so if you see when I pull up, I'm sometimes sticking my tiny little tweezers under there just to hold my paper in place. Now I've got my background stamped, and I did use the Memento Tuxedo Black, which I find to be the best ink when coloring with Copics on this particular cardstock, which is Neenah Solar White and 80 pounds. And so while you can't see it in the video, I barely see, the shape of my window is drawn there. So I'm just going to go ahead and color the dunes using my Copic markers and using the very light pencil line as my guide where my window will stop. And really, the way this design turned out, I probably wasn't necessary to mask it. I could have just colored where it was, but I had kind of thought I would do more of a pop dot look, so. And just going back through, blending, but trying not to overblend. And I will list all of the Copic markers on my website and in the description for this video. And since this coloring will take just a little bit, I will go ahead and step away and just let the coloring happen. Okay guys, so now I've got that background colored and just checking it with my frame. I used a punch to cut a circle, and this is 1 inch. And I'm just using the Distress Oxide ink in Fossilized Amber and then Spice Marmalade to kind of give it a sun-ish color. And then I'm going to use the negative of my die to trim that down so that it is not sticking out. And just using a pair of scissors, and then going to adhere that down. Just using the ATG tape gun. And then at this point, it was time for the camel. So as I mentioned earlier, this particular kit came with fantastic coordinating dies. So I'm just going to use my Misty. I've die cut the camel shape, lining that up, again using the Tuxedo Black Memento ink. And now I've got my camel, and again going to go ahead and use the Copic markers to color him in. And just this, for this particular image, and this is sort of my normal methodology, is to start with the darkest color and then work into the lighter. And this camel stamp has a ton of little tiny details. And I found the super tiny little tassels off of his bridle shape there. If I went over them with the brown and then was able to put a little bit of the blue eventually back over that, I knew I was going to add some Stickles on this for a little bit of just extra shimmer. So I was alright with them coming out a little bit darker or not quite as blue. So I am just coloring in my camel. And then I'm going to come in and start with the little diamonds on his saddle. I'm just using my Y17 on that. And then going to color, I guess it's kind of a saddle pad with the B24 and B26. And just laying in my shadow areas, in the folds of the fabric, and then under the saddle itself. I'm just working those together. And then using the B24 to color his bridle, and there's the tassels I kind of mentioned. And then I'm going to come in with the BG02 and color on the trim of the fabric. And again, this is such a tiny space. I did not try to do multiple shades or blending. I just laid in kind of that blue-green color. And then I'm going to use the R24 and R46 on the saddle itself. A little bit of brown, E37, and then I used that BG02 again, just around, there's a little bit of the die cut white around the camel. And so I just wanted that to blend a little more seamlessly in with my background. So I just colored that with the light blue. And now I'm going to fiddle with the background because I'm trying to extend that background scene a little bit further because I can see a tiny bit of white. But that's really why I put the camel there. So sometimes that's just how stuff works out. And then this stamp set has these fantastic Moroccan style lamps, which are teeny tiny. So I'm zoomed in super duper close on this one to just kind of show you the coloring on these stamps and coordinating die. And coloring our light. And then back around the edge. And now I've got my mask back out and just stamping the chain to hold the lamp. And just used that mask so that I didn't stamp off into the white area. But now I've got that all set, and I'm going to use a little bit of foam tape on the back of the lamp so that that pops off a little bit. And now I'm adding my sentiment, which says, "You are my oasis." And I decided instead of putting this on a separate piece of paper and mounting it, that I would just stamp it over the background. And I'm using, again, the Memento and Tuxedo black, and I really liked the way this came out. I was a little worried that it would just kind of not be bright enough, but it turned out great. And then just applying a little bit of tape, or quite a bit of tape actually, there on the back. And didn't get it exactly right the first time, and as you guys know, I've mentioned the ATG, not the most forgiving, but was able to kind of get that repositioned in a better spot. So applying a little bit of foam tape to the back of my camel. And then I'm going to mount him on the front. And then as I was looking at it, I felt like it was just missing a little bit of balance. So I stamped a palm tree in the teal ink and die cut that. And then I'm going to use again the little foam tape and just put that on the other side. And then my favorite part, adding a little bit of glitter, a little bit of bling. So I've got Stickles in yellow. And I'm just applied that to the lamp and then the detailing on our camel's blanket. And then next I'm going to use here just a little bit of blue, and it's actually called blue. Just put a little bit on, and then you'll see I just use my finger to kind of spread that out so it's a really, really light application so as not to color over the Copic coloring, the detailing and the shading on that. And then I just did a little bit on his bridle. We've got some Xmas or Christmas red that I used on the saddle, and then this gold color is called Goldenrod, and apply that on my lantern. And then I've got this fantastic background, and I just decided that I couldn't stop myself, and so I added a little bit more Stickles on the background, coordinating with sort of the colors that we'd use on that background. So I've got Peacock, Grape Crush, and Fruit Punch. And so I just kind of picked one of those design elements in each of the colors. Here I'm using the Grape Crush to just fill in and give it a little bit of extra sparkle. I thought this was so much fun. And then a little bit of blue Stickles down in the bottom corner. My next step was to set this aside to dry, and you guys know I'm super impatient, so I made myself wait overnight. I dug out a piece of Eggplant NB cardstock, which worked fantastic. Just trimmed up my panel, adhered it to that, and then everything went onto a card base. And that is it. This is a super fun set. I had a blast making it, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. So don't forget to subscribe and have a great day.